Hi everyone, Valharik here. Today I'm going to visit Fate Hunters in one of my first episodes, kind of a first impression slash review. I want to make some videos that help people determine what to buy. I'm somebody that I'm constantly looking for new games and not necessarily all the AAA titles that everybody knows about, so quite a few of these games I look at will be kind of that second tier, third tier games that they can be great games, better than AAA titles in a lot of cases, but maybe people just don't know about them. So I'm going to put up on the screen here kind of my stats as of this recording, just so you get an idea of whether you feel I've played it enough to determine if it's a good buy or not. So you should be able to be looking at those while I've been talking here, and then I'll look at kind of the menu quickly, and then a little bit of gameplay, and then I'll talk about the game some before ending everything. So pretty basic menu for a card game. So Fate Hunters is a deck building card game. I've never actually played Slay the Spire, but from other reviews that's probably the closest to this in terms of gameplay. Other deck builders I've played are things like it's called Monster Slayers, I think, where you pick a character and throughout the game it's not just a card game like your Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone or something where you build a deck and then you take it in to fight other players or against the game. A deck builder, you start the game with a fairly weak deck, and then throughout play you're buying and earning cards to improve your deck, and then that just kind of progresses. So you've got a library where you can look at all of your available cards. This game has 5 different character classes you can play: Inquisitor, Arcanist, Raider, Berserker, and Spy. Each of them play very differently, and they have completely different sets of cards. I'll let you kind of explore and figure out what each of them do and do well, and what they don't do well. So each, you're not going to start with all of these cards. These are just all of the available cards to learn as skills when playing as the Inquisitor. Then there's also weapon cards, so these you'll find throughout play. You might start with some of them, some of the weaker ones. I think most of the base characters will start with a dagger. You maybe can start with a mace or a throwing axe, but the bulk of these you're going to find as you're playing. And some of them are legendary items, some of them are not. Not all the legendaries are even necessarily the best items in the game. I'm not a big fan of the elemental staff, for instance, but there are skills that will use, say you get a bonus something for each legendary weapon, or you can upgrade your weapons. You can turn this dagger into a +1 dagger that does more damage, a +2 dagger, +3, and the legendaries don't increase like that. So they unless their ability makes them increase over time, like the Blood Drinker here, the legendaries you can't enhance them or level them up throughout play. And not the leveling up of weapons is not necessarily just a +1 to damage. It could be for instance, the throwing axe is a good example. deal 3 damage to a random creature, and then you put this back on the top of the pile instead of discarding it. Well, I think it's like the level 3 throwing axe. It suddenly is, instead of dealing 3 damage to a random creature, it just is deal 3 damage to creatures. Well, it's actually more. It's, I think, 4 or 5 damage at that point. But it's no longer dealing it to a random creature. You're getting to pick it. So that's kind of nice, where the cards, as they increase, it's not as bland as just, oh, I'm doing more damage than I used to. The bow, for instance, lets you draw a card if you keep your deck tight. If you've got 20 or less cards, you'll get to draw a card when you play the bow. That actually increases as you level it up. So if you're playing one of the classes that can keep a nice tight deck, a bow in there can be pretty useful. The limited, there's lots of abilities in this game, or traits, that when you hover over a card, it'll create a little box that tells you what that trait does. So limited, you can't play more than one of those per turn. So you don't want to load your deck with bows. You're not going to be able to make a loop where you're just constantly drawing cards with bows, because you can only use one of them per turn. So there's lots of stuff like that. Critical Strike that has chances to deal double damage, and you can get effects throughout the game that increase that chance. There's a lot of variety to this game. Items, there's one-use items. There's treasure. Treasure, a lot of it, you can't play it. You pick it up, and it sits in your deck, and for the most part, it'll be kind of a dead card. When you draw it, it's not that useful. So there's a mechanic that after each level, you have the option of turning in all your treasure. Basically, you take all the treasure out of your deck, and you convert it to these coins that are in the bottom right corner here of my screen, or bottom left corner of my screen, and those coins can then be spent to purchase new starting cards for your decks. There are also some other abilities you can get throughout the game that will make it so drawing or discarding treasure can give you some kind of a benefit. There's also 2 encounters you can run into where you can spend treasure. You can basically destroy a treasure card in your deck to upgrade your weapons, like I said earlier, or the merchant will change them into a useful item. So you've got some options there. I haven't even seen all of these items yet. I've played quite a bit of this game. I've beat it on several difficulty levels, but there are still, I've got 55 hours in the game, and I'm not sure I've ever run into this Pandora's box. I don't think I've ever gotten that. So there's a lot of cards. There's a lot to find. These are just some effects that can come up throughout the game. Most of them are bad, but not all of them. And then there's tarot cards. So after each level, you'll have the option to purchase a random, you purchase a tarot card, and you get to choose one out of 3 random ones that are dealt to you, basically. So that adds more variety to the game. And there are 6 stages, essentially, to each dungeon run in this. So you could get as many as 5 of these working at the same time. And they can change, change the way you play quite a bit. You know, there's like this tower here where restore your health to full and then double your max hit points. But from then on, anytime you heal yourself, from cards, from passive abilities, to you can spend fate points at the end of a mission to normally replenish your health to full. Well, with this, it still only heals you once, so you gotta find ways to heal inexpensively many times, because just healing 1 point, you know, playing a healing card and getting 1 health out of it is not a efficient use of your cards, and you're probably gonna lose. But for instance, I've used that in conjunction with, say, the Empress here to great effect, where the Empress is when you discard a treasure card from your hand, you restore 1 hit point. So, and it's got that if you die, you don't lose as much of your gold that you've accumulated on your treasure. But what that does is, you know, constantly, you know, if you've got enough treasure in your deck, as you're discarding it, you're healing up, which normally you don't want to draw a lot of treasure cards because most of them don't help you. But with this, that's, you know, one way to keep yourself alive, and it really changes how you're playing the game. I like that. Let's go back. Options. So fairly minimal options in this game. You got full screen resolution, sound. My wife doesn't like the music in this game. I'll maybe turn it up here. Actually, I think I'll have to try and turn it up during the game, because the music during the options menu and stuff here at the beginning, the title screen, is pretty bland. It's quiet. It's a little bit ominous, but my wife doesn't like the music in this game because she feels it's too kind of ominous and scary. Language, doesn't look like I can actually change that, so maybe that's something they plan on implementing. Oh, wait a minute, there it goes. So I guess it just changes as you click. Oh, there you go, drop down. So you got a fair number of options there. Fast mode, I believe this just makes like the animations quicker. One thing to developers, put tooltips explaining your options. I mean, what you think might be obvious to people is not necessarily obvious. I mean, I'm a lifelong gamer, so I'm pretty sure that that's what that's doing. But, you know, I could interpret that as, there's not going to be as many encounters per level, and I'm just going to go through the game quicker that way. It could mean lots of different things, and I'm sure I could go online and find like dev notes or something to see what that's doing for sure, but I shouldn't have to. It should just tell me in game. And then reinforcements. This game has a mechanic basically where if you're taking too long, you know, I don't know how many rounds it is. If I'm in an encounter and I take like more than 4 or 5 rounds or something, the game will throw some reinforcements at me. I think that that's kind of to prevent you from like knocking out all but one of the enemy creatures and then just cycling through your cards till you get healed up before going into the next room. And that, you know, that's kind of a lame way to play in my book anyway. I mean, heal as much as you can, obviously, but I don't like the trying to game the mechanics to heal up. You know, that was a problem with like Darkest Dungeon and some of those other games where you can like stun your opponent and then just heal, and then stun your opponent and heal. I don't feel that makes for a real fun game. I don't want my games to be too easy and that kind of stuff. So it has reinforcements, but if you're the kind of person that's like, no, I want to be able to do that, you can turn that off. You know, that was a thing people requested, and the devs added it to the game. So that's nice to know. All right, you can look at credits, quit. Alright, so play the game a little bit. So you've got your different classes, and once you've won them, a round with a class, you can select hard mode and then change the level, and it tells you, what's changing. So base game has nothing special, but once you add hard mode, bosses are tougher with more hit points and more attack. Level 2 exile cost is 2 fate points instead of 1 fate point. So what that means is basically at the end of each level you get 5 fate points to spend on a variety of different things. One of the things you can spend on is to exile cards you don't want that are in your deck out of there. Normally that costs 1, but once you've gone up to hard mode level 2, it's costing 2. And normally when you pick to get a tarot card, you can spend, it takes 3 of your fate points to select a tarot card, and you can normally spend your remaining 2 to re-roll if you don't like the 3 that showed up. Harder difficulty, you can't do that anymore. So it prolongs the life of the game by making it more challenging. And you have to play a little bit different, because there are some classes that I feel can be very dependent on getting the right tarot cards. So if you can't re-roll your tarot cards, you may have to reevaluate the deck structure you try to use on that run. Just a quick run through. So the Inquisitor, he's got a lot of healing powers, and a lot of his cards have this last word where they have an additional effect if it's the last card you play out of your hand. That can be pretty powerful, but I'm not a huge fan of it, because as you've seen, when I was looking at the list of cards, there are like the treasure cards that you normally can't play. There's quite a few cards that you're not able to play, or the situation isn't there to be able to play cards, so you're not necessarily going to be able to guarantee that you're always going to be able to use this last word. And if you have multiple cards with last word, you're only going to be able to get that extra effect on one of them per turn. There is a card that if you're playing the Inquisitor and you're using a lot of last word cards, I think is essential to get, but you don't start with it. And that card will make it so that I think it heals you a couple points, and also causes you to have all your last word effects go off regardless of if it's the last card you play or not. So it's still, it's an interesting ability. The Arcanist has lots of cards that are choose one, so there will be 2 effects listed on the card, and you can choose which one you want. The Arcanist also has a lot of attack skill cards that are, they get better the more of them you have, or they are better the more of a different certain card is in your deck. So that's I've seen a lot of people online that don't really like the Arcanist. That's actually my favorite character. The Raider, so those first 3, actually, you start with the Inquisitor. I don't remember if that's the only one you start with or not, but I think you might start with the Arcanist as well. I know you don't start with the Raider. You've got to unlock the Raider. And he has a lot of cards that involve exiling cards from your deck, oftentimes randomly. So that can be good and bad. In a deck builder, one of the best things you can do lots of times is exile bad cards out of your deck so that you're not drawing them anymore. But if it's random, a lot of his are like exile the top card of your deck. If you don't know what the top card of your deck is, you might accidentally exile one of your best cards. So that's another case where you may want to, beat the first level, get Fate cards, and try to get the one that you get to play with the top card of your deck revealed. So he's an interesting guy to play. He also has cards with a mechanic called like possession or something, where you play him and there's a chance you'll get possessed, and then when that happens, 3 options will pop up, most of which are usually bad. So you got to be a little bit careful how often you're using those cards that have the potential to possess you. The Berserker has this rage ability, so he has cards where he's gaining rage counters basically, and then he's got other cards that will use those rage counters to increase the effects. And he's pretty fun. I like playing the Berserker. And then you've got the Spy. The Spy's one that I think could be pretty powerful. I haven't played the Spy very much because I don't like the randomness of it. Basically, he gets cards from all of the other 4 classes, and that could mean great combos, or it could mean you've got a mismatch of garbage in your deck. So I don't play the Spy real often for that reason. Let's see. I'll show you a little Berserker gameplay. So here's where you can pick your starting deck. Includes 5 skills and then 5 cards from the supply. And the 5 starting skills you can't change, but the 5 supply cards that are items, weapons, that kind of stuff, those can be changed. And these are what you unlock. You start with, I think, these 4 and like the healing herb. And then I've unlocked the throwing axe, skull crusher, infernal contract, and the whetstone. One thing, this infernal contract, it can really alter the way you play. I usually use it, but I might turn it off for this. Well, actually, it'd be kind of nice to pick a bunch of skill cards and show you that right at the beginning. But it takes all your, once you use it, it takes all your starting skills out of your deck and replaces them with 5 new ones that you draft. When it says delve, you're basically normally dealt 3 options of cards, and you pick one of those. So you get to do that 5 times, and you can kind of, try to improve upon these abilities, because like punch, deal 1 damage to a creature, terrible. Great to get that out of your deck. So I'll use that. One thing, you want to do it before you've leveled up, because every time you level up you get to delve a skill card, and if you use it after you level up, you're just going to lose that skill card you got for going to level 2. So I wish it just automatically gave that to you in your starting hand. It doesn't always. So when it doesn't, I do just concede the game, go back and start again. So like right here, it didn't give me that. I don't want to waste my time going up a level and then losing my card that I earned. Alright, so I got it here. So I'll use the skill cards that I obtained this round, that I got here, and then I'll use that and get a bunch more, basically replacing my old ones. So look at what I've got here. I've got the whetstone this turn. All your weapon cards gain critical strike. the next weapon card gets to be played twice. So that's, fairly powerful. Punch, deal 1 damage to a creature. And notice that there is a difference between skill, item, and weapon. There'll be lots of cards that say, draw a skill card. The Infernal Contract, for instance. I'm exiling all my skill cards, not my weapons or items. Same thing with weapons. There'll be things where every one of your weapons gives you a bonus damage to a certain skill, something like that. So, just kind of the layout here I'll go over before I start playing stuff. So, you can see what level you're on in the top left. On the top right tells you how many total cards are in your deck. The bottom right shows you how many cards you have left in your draw pile. You can click on that to see what they are. Now the order that it shows here is not necessarily the order they are. So charge, for instance, is not on the top of my deck necessarily. It could be this dagger. But that's a really nice quality of life thing in a game like this, because there's times where you're going to be like, you have the ability to draw a card. You can look to see in your deck, do I have something that I'm going to want, or is there a bunch of bad cards sitting in my deck that I maybe don't want to draw yet? I like that they do that. In fact, I think you can click on the deck here. Yeah, you can click on the deck and look at every card that's in there and how many of them. So like this punch, I've got 2 punches in my deck. There are certain classes and certain setups where that's really important to know what you've got in there. So just kind of a nice quality of life. On the bottom left here, I've got my portrait, I've got my life. If you hover over your life, you can see, I've got 18 out of 18 hit points. Your current level, I think you can only level to 20, I believe. And that, I think, caps out your character. Every 5th level, you'll get, instead of drawing just a normal skill card, you'll get a heroic skill card, which, they're stronger, basically. These circles on the left are where it will show what my fate cards are, or my tarot cards, if I purchase any tarot cards, they'll show them on the left here. And this bar that's empty at the moment is my experience. Every level it takes more and more experience to go up. So what else? I've got my monsters here. So right now there's an ogre that's got regeneration, which basically means I have to do all 6 damage to him in 1 turn. And he normally has this 2 attack, which is the bottom left of his card, but right now he's got this goblin shaman that is actually buffing him, giving a +1. So right now the ogre's will do 3 damage to me if I don't kill it, and the shaman will do 1 if I don't kill it. And if I left the shaman around long enough that reinforcements came in, they'll get buffed as well, because it's all other creatures get +1 attack. So I want to kill these guys, and actually with this Infernal Contract, there's a good chance I'll be able to kill both of them this turn. I'm going to start with just playing the Whetstone and then killing this ogre. So I still can show you. So the Skull Crusher I played is a legendary weapon. I had to get enough coins by going through runs to purchase this one for my starting deck. But it's a deal 3 damage to a creature and then draw a random card from the draw pile that has critical strike. Normally it would have just automatically drawn 1. The only other card in my starting deck that has critical strike is this dagger, and it was already in my hand. So I didn't get that bonus, but that's fine. Alright, so I don't want to kill this guy before I use the Internal Contract, because that will level me up. But I do want to hurt him with these two skills before then. So I've got Rampage here, which is deal 3 damage to a creature, gain a rage token. That's good. I want to get rage tokens, even though who knows, after I use the internal contract I might not get any cards that even need rage tokens. We'll see. I got Punch. The dagger I showed you does 2 damage, but it has critical strike, so there's a chance that it'll do 4. And then the infernal contract. Alright, so I'm gonna hit him with Rampage. I'm gonna punch him for 1 more. Then I'm gonna use the infernal. Why do I keep doing that? Infernal contract. It's exiling all my skills out of my deck, and now I'm gonna get 5 of these draft options. So Whirlwind deals 1 damage 3 times to random creatures and has critical strike. It's good to note that it's not doing like 3 damage to a creature. It's doing 1 damage 3 times to random creatures. So if I get cards that, like, you know, my next card does an extra 2 damage, it would do an extra 2 damage every time it hits. So it really would do, you know, instead of 3 damage, if I was able to buff it 2 damage per hit, it's going to do 9. So little note, there's a lot of, you know, learning how cards interact with each other in this game. Feel no pain, draw 3 cards, add a wound card to your hand. So wounds are a bad card. They will sit in your deck, and if they're in your hand at the end of your turn, it'll do a damage, you know, do 1 damage to your hero. Obviously you don't want that, but so this card, you draw 3 cards, add a wound card to your hand. If you spend 10 rage, you can exile all wounds to your hand, or from your hand. So it's a way to draw cards, and hopefully, if you can keep your rage up, get rid of your wounds. Not just the one that you're drawing right there, but any one that's in your hand. So if I knew I was going to have cards that gave me a lot of rage, that's not a bad one to pick. Then I've got Slam. Deal 3 damage to a creature, discard a card. If you discarded a wound card, draw a card and deal 1 damage to all creatures. So another one that focuses on wounds. Now the Berserker has lots of cards that focus around kind of manipulation of wound cards. But I don't know what exactly I'm going to get through these infernal contract delving. So I'm going to, you know, I know critical strike with my Skull Crusher is useful to have in my deck, so I'm going to take that. Bloodletting, add 10 rage tokens. Add a wound to your hand if you already have a wound. Draw 3 cards, then discard 3. That's good. Unbreakable. Restore 2 hit points for each curse, poison, or wound card in the deck. You know, that can be very good if you're building up a lot of those bad cards. And then Rampage is a simple way to just do some damage and gain a rage token. So I might take this Bloodletting just because gaining 10 rage tokens in 1 shot is nice. Of course, this Frenzy here, that's another one that's not bad. You know, the draw card, then discard a card, lots of times that, you know, that's not necessarily that great of a thing, but I'll show you here where discarding a card, it can be beneficial, you know. Let's see. I'll kind of play through this now a little bit quicker. I don't want this video to necessarily go too long, but let me know in the comments if you want to see more gameplay of this, and I can certainly do it, and I can be more, you know, strategic in all of my decisions I'm making. Alright, so that one I want to have wounds in my hand. This one's just simple gain a rage and draw a card. Now that I know I can get a lot of rage, I think I'll take Feel No Pain. Alright, so here's where I'm saying, gain 10 rage tokens. I can, I could draw a card and then discard that wound. And basically I would be replacing the wound with something better and gain 5 rage tokens. Now I've maxed out my rage right now, so that doesn't make a lot of sense to do. But what I can do is feel no pain. Now I can kill this shaman with these other cards, but I just want to kind of show you some of the gameplay. So I might as well draw 3 cards and spend the 10 rage to exile what will be 2 wounds, because this is also going to add another wound. So I draw 3, adds a wound, and then it exiled both those wounds from my deck. So, now I'm looking in good shape. And I can draw a card and discard a card there. Probably discard this healing I don't need. One thing I didn't mention, I don't think, that Infernal Contract, it does lower your max hit points by 4. So that's one reason why, the Berserker starts with 18 hit points. He can handle it pretty well. It's a little bit more dicey with like the Arcanist, who only starts with 15 hit points. Then you're down to 11, and 11 is pretty light. Once I typically will still do it, but you really have to look for ways to like increase your maximum hit points, which at the end of each level, one of the things you can do with your fate points is increase your max hit points. So some people say that if you do that, it's a must. I'm not that extreme with it, but I don't want to add a wound token, even though this would max out my rage. I'm just gonna use the war cry, and then I'm just gonna kill this guy. Now normally, like most deck builders, you'll discard your hand at the end of each round. This is no different, other than there are a handful of cards that'll say reserve on them, and you'll get to, if you don't play them, you'll keep them in your hand. But I don't have any of those yet. Throwing Dagger is nice for the Berserker who's going to have potentially a lot of wounds in his deck. You can use it to kind of get rid of them. So here's a card that's going to make my critical strikes happen more often. So that, and draw and discard a card to try and keep the bad cards out of my hand. Ram, you'll notice this one requires 15 rage. My max right now is 10, so I'd have to find one of the cards that increases your maximum rage before I can even do that. Deal 20 damage to a random creature. But this is also a good card. If a card deals 1 damage, it deals 3 damage instead. So like that Whirlwind, this is kind of one of the cards I was talking about, where normally it's doing 1 damage 3 times. If I play Ram first, all of a sudden it's doing 3 damage 3 times. That's a nice combo. What do I want to do? But you do have to be careful, because there are like wounds, for instance, deal 1 damage. So if I do a Ram and I have a wound card in my hand that I can't get rid of, that wound is going to do 3 damage to me. So you got to be careful. I've accidentally killed myself before by like not paying attention to how cards are working together. But when you go back and look at it, it all makes sense. It's my mistake. It's not the game. I think for now, since I can't use the second ability there, I'm going to take the Killer Instinct. And, after you kill the monsters, you can use cards that have, like, for some reason it lets you use cards that have random targets. Most of the time it's not going to do anything, but like for those throwing axes, it will let you use the throwing axe against nothing and then have it go back to the top of your deck. And then lots of, like healing cards and stuff you can still use at the end of the round. Now, after you beat monsters, you'll be able to go to the next room, and you'll have either, no choice, like here, I'm just going to be going into this room, or you might have two different options, and the options are just like an easy room, hard room, normal room, or like a mystery room, or a boss room. And the mystery rooms can have monsters in them, could have good encounters in them. You don't know before you go in. You'll see one when it pops up, and you can see what type of room it is by the look. So this one I think is going to be a hard room that I'm going into next, just based on what the door looks like. Alright, so I'm just going to play a little bit. Ethereal weapon cards only do 1 damage, no matter how deadly the weapon is. And then Entomb has an effect go off when the thing dies. In this case, it's going to cause me to discard a card from my hand. And we've seen regeneration before, so I'm going to start with Killer Instinct because I don't need this healing potion. I can discard that. Do the War Cry. Of course I get, well, let's see. This one's not bad, especially at this point. So this is where I have a choice. I'm discarding a card. I can hide that for a minute, go back and look and see, okay, so if I use the Bloodletting, I know that I'll get Feel No Pain because I'll be drawing 3 cards, and I've got these 3 in my deck. So that, that's a nice case of, without that, you'd have to kind of remember, well, what do I still have in my deck? This game tells you. It doesn't tell you what's next, it just tells you what is available. So I'm going to do Bloodletting. Oh shit, I was thinking that the other way. Well, I botched that. I was thinking I had the same situation I had before, where I was gonna draw 3 cards and then I'd be able to use Bloodletting to heal me and get rid of my wounds. So this is an example of how not to play the game. Alright, so luckily I killed the Vengeful Spirit, which then discarded the wound. So I'm not going to take damage from that, but I am going to get hit by both of these guys for 5 damage, which is quite a bit for my character. Alright. So now when I feel no pain, I can get rid of the wound that I'm drawing, but there's a good chance I'll draw the other one. So I'm still going to do that, because, well, actually I could have killed these guys. Possibly. Oh good, I did draw the other wound, so Feel No Pain got rid of them. Let's see. Get rid of just the regular dagger. Max out my rage. Discard that wound. And then get Whetstone. Kill that guy. Kill that guy. Ancient Sword. So this is a treasure card, and it's also a weapon. So I can use it. It's pretty weak. Interesting, you can level these up. I've never leveled them up that far, but I wonder if it gets like powerful if you level it up to like 3 or 4. Just because it's an ancient sword. Alright. So I'm going to try and get through to the first boss, and then I'll give kind of a wrap up of what I like, what I don't like about the game. Alright. I don't know if I'm gonna get stuff to actually kill the goblin or the bigger guys. So I could go for it. Is my dagger in here? Yeah, so I'm gonna try this. Dagger will kill that guy, and this, no, didn't kill my goblin. So you can see, between bloodletting, feel no pain, I've already got a pretty good combo going. Do this. Kill the goblin. Discard the wound so I don't get hit with it. Went up a level. Could get another feel no pain. Then I'd have a real good chance to have that in my deck. But I gotta be careful not to get too many cards that use rage without enough cards to gain it. And I'm gonna get it though. That's a key card to kind of how I'm playing. Alright. I'm not gonna need the rage tokens because this should kill this guy. Got some coins. So, I find this game pretty fun. It feels well thought out, There's, a card game like this, there's always going to be, things you could improve. So, am I going to be able to do enough damage for these regeneration guys? I'm going to try and kill this troll just because he has so much life. Alright, coins aren't going to do me any good. There we go. I'm not going to have the rage to get the benefit off of that, so I'm going to whetstone, kill that guy, and there's a good chance, yep, I should be able to kill everything. This is an interesting option. So enchanted means even when I discard an enchanted card, the effect will go off. So in a deck like this where I'm drawing and discarding a lot of cards, enchanted is actually pretty useful. And I think my cat's giving me trouble. Do I want more cards or damage? I think I'm going to go with, well, actually that's not a decision. I can draw both. Treasure, you can always draw as much or as little of what comes up as you want. Move to the next room. I got a choice, normal or hard. I'm not healed, but I think I still have my... Oh, did I already use my healing potion? I maybe need to go through the normal just because I don't have any way to heal in my deck right now. Alright. Do I have anything that's going to cause me to discard cards this time? No. So, just use that. I'll hit the ogre with my whetstone dagger. And then I don't think I want to draw a wound card just to get 3 rage. Unfortunately, well, do I have... Yeah, Frenzy will get me the rage to use my other one, so Frenzy. Hit him with that. Grab these coins. Feel no pain. Gets rid of my wounds. Did use up all my rage. Alright, so another critical strike, but I'm not a big fan of things that target random creatures. After using Infernal Contract and don't have a lot of life, kill them all is not... it's a good card. It situationally could probably save your ass, but especially without ways to heal myself right now, I might not even finish this this level since I can't heal. But Whirlwind, can do good damage. So I'm going to take it. Oh, this is not what I want to see. Alright. Draw a card, then discard a card. Draw another one. I can draw and discard. Since I don't have the rage right now, I'm going to discard that wound. If I got Bloodletting, yes, then I can do this. Discard these coins. And I think the dagger. And then I can do this one more time. Get rid of all the wounds, and now I'm decked out with a pretty good hand. Let's see, do I have enough? No. So, use that. I'll kill this guy. Oh, that was perfect. Yeah, I couldn't have asked for that to go much better. Only took 1 damage at the beginning of the round. I was looking at like 7. Alright. Actually, I might use Bloodletting, so I'll discard that. Draw a card. Bloodletting. Now, Feel No Pain's actually going to get rid of my wounds, so I'm going to discard the Whetstone, Whirlwind, and probably the other Whirlwind. Draw a bunch of cards, get rid of my wounds, draw a card, discard that, and dead. Healing Salve, this deck deals with wounds, so this would kind of clog it up, but just the fact that I'm so hurt, I'm going to take that. I'm going to risk taking the coins too. I'm about to go up against a boss. I don't think I want to muddy my deck with Confusion Potion. Now, hopefully... Oh great, it's a guy that when he takes damage I lose. I don't think I'm set up to beat this guy. Because like my Whirlwinds in this case are gonna kill me. That's what he gets sometimes in these games. Discard. don't have a lot of chance here. I mean, each time it takes damage, I'm getting hit, so I mean, I'm decked out practically as good as I could be, and it's a case of just, you know, maxing my opportunity. Got me killed, so I didn't even get to show you the after boss screen, but I kind of have gone over it already. You get 5 fate points, and you get 5 or 6 options. One is to draw one of those tarot cards that'll be just an ongoing effect for the rest of the game. One gives you a heroic skill, one gives you a heroic weapon, one allows you to exile cards, specific cards you don't want that are in your deck, one increases your maximum hit points by 2, one fully heals you, and then the final one will exile all your treasure cards, and you'll get their value in gold coins at the end of your run. So there's a lot going on in Fate Hunters. You know, I enjoy it. It's quick. I didn't show, you know, maybe the volume will be high enough to hear the sound in the game, but I kind of like it. As far as, like, you know, would I buy it? If you like this kind of game, it might be worth it. Right now, it's $15 USD on Steam, and that's not on sale or anything. That's just its normal price. So $15 for a game that I've played for 55 hours is a pretty good deal, I would say, if you like this type of game. If you're, you know, if you're curious but you're not, you know, a big card game fan, or not a big deck builder fan, you know, A, you probably haven't watched the video for this long, but B, I still, you know, recommend checking it out. I think it's a good mental exercise to play a game like this. But maybe you'd only want to get it like when it's on sale or something. If you really hate card games, if you really hate random number generators, and losing a game because you were simply unlucky. You know, the boss that I was fighting there at the end, that guy in particular is just tough for my deck build. You're gonna run into that with Fate Hunters, but I was playing through pretty slow there because I was explaining things. You can play this game pretty fast once you know the cards and everything. So, occasionally losing a run isn't the end of the world. So anyway, that's Fate Hunters. I would say check it out. Anyway, this is Valharik. I'll put up some links to other videos, and if you want to subscribe, there should be a button in the center of the screen. Otherwise, give me a like, and I will talk to you later.